just so I can understand the difference between the outside-in approach and the inside-out approach, I would love to use a real-world example. My understanding of the outside-in approach, and please correct me if I get it wrong, is that we take in inputs through our senses, feed it into a black box model of the brain, which generates an output in the form of an action. In the case of that's the perception, decision, action cycle, right? And we flip that for the inside-out approach, where we say that brain generates an action first and creates this feedback loop for the senses to come and ground it or validate it, right? Let's take an example. So I have this rose. Let's say I'm holding this rose in front of me. What happens in both cases? What happens in the outside-in approach and the inside-out approach? How does the brain react differently?
Okay. So if I have a passive brain, then I generate a bunch of changes, and then you build up the world from the inputs that you receive. So it starts out with this blank slate, and then you make it complicated. Now, if you have this rose, you have another rose and another rose and another rose. Then you've got my eyeglasses and many, many objects. Yeah. And the idea is that the brain gets richer and richer and richer, or we can say it more and more and more complex. Yeah. So if you want, you can say there is a rule here that the richness of the brain, or richness of the dynamic of the brain, and the richness of the interactions among neurons is proportional with the learned amount of information. So your brain is more complicated now than it was yesterday because you had seen a nice movie yesterday, or apart from development, let's say from 20 to 60 years of age, we learn so much, and then the brain would be more and more and more and more and more complicated if the tabula rasa idea would work. And that's a very complicated thing, because now you have to change everything in the brain all the time when there is something new. And you assume that there is always something new. Now, the inside out is, I would say, simpler, because it suggests that there is a lot of pre-configured knowledge in the brain. Neurons don't have to change all the time with each other, but they are more like these Legos here, that you have got things that are, I call it sequential activity in the brain. There are these trajectories or sequences of activity that are available. Now, for me, or from the inside out view, learning is not a synthesis from the outside information, but it is a match between a pre-configured activity, such as this Lego, and what's outside in the world, verified by my actions and the consequences of my actions. So it's a matching process. I'd like to compare it with the Chinese characters that, none of them make sense, but if you are an English speaker, then you can make a correspondence. The English knowledge that you have is the grounding. And then you say, oh, this character means this. So the characters already, or the Legos already exist in the brain, and then you can reshuffle the Legos much more easily rather than making it synthetic. And when we talk about AI, I can tell you why it is a huge advantage.